Welcome to Type Tune Tint. I'm Tom Kranz. A master of horror, a master of dark art, also a survivor of some of life's cruelest twists. On this first episode of 2024, we meet Dan Henk, an accomplished artist, tattoo master, and more recently, novelist. His creative life hasn't been derailed at all by some terrible and tragic experiences. We'll learn how he pushed forward to become a successful tattoo artist, author, and podcaster. And I'm joined by Dan Henk, my special guest today, and I say special because those of you who are watching the video version of this podcast, you're in for just a joy to the senses. I just spent a little time on Dan's website, and Dan, just my thumbnail sketches, as I said in my intro, he's basically an artist, right? And as an artist, he does painting, he does drawing, he does tattooing. He's a writer now, and we'll talk about his novels. He's a tattoo artist, and as you can see, you can't see too many of them. There's one on his forehead there and on his neck, but Dan's been tattooing for a long time, and he's been tattooed. There we go. He's been tattooed for a long time. Dan, when did you get your first tattoo? Do you remember your first one?
Yeah, I remember the first one. I can tell you about that too, because it's a story. It's a cautionary tale. But yeah, I got it when I was 21. I would have gotten it earlier, but I had no money. Like 18, I was kicked out of my house, homeless, living in the woods, and my parents moved. So I couldn't afford a tattoo back then.
So, wow. So you were kicked out of your house and you were homeless. So that adds to the list of crap that's happened to in your life, which we're going to get to in just a second. Folks, you talk about a survivor here. You're looking at one right there who's survived some pretty nasty shit and went on to become a success. So were you always an artistic guy? Did you draw in school? Were you always drawing and painting stuff?
Yeah, my parents are, my dad worked for the military. My mom didn't work, so they had two kids. So I didn't see us as being poor. I mean, by today's standards, where everybody has a cell phone, a computer, and video games, we had none of that. And we didn't even have a TV until seventh grade. But to me, I didn't feel poor. Like we lived on army bases. We go to lumber scrap yards and build tree forts and BMX bike everywhere. And to us, that was fun. But my big thing was I would go to the library. And every week I would check out this huge stack of books and I have them all read within a week. I was reading adult level in fourth grade, and I always debated whether I want to be a writer or an artist, but my reading was pretty crappy in the early days. I wrote my first novel in fifth grade and it sucks. Don't read it.
Well, you were in fifth grade.
Yeah. But in third grade, my parents sent me to oil painting classes. And so I was always a guy at first, I'd play role-playing games and I draw the characters. And then I got heavily into punk rock in high school and I do all the artwork for my friends' bands and, paint their jackets and stuff like that. So yeah, I've always been into it.
So I see here that you've done, you did a bunch of projects. I'm guessing, were these album covers you did, or did you do promotional stuff for them or for the bands?
I did starting in high school, I did art for my friends' bands. And then when I moved to NYC, and I moved on the advice of my art teacher, he said, if you want to career in art, you got to move to New York. So I moved to New York. Middle of the night, motorcycle, everything I owned, a backpack, boom, I was to New York.
Where did you move from? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I didn't grow up in one place because every 3 years we'd move. But
military brat, right?
Exactly, yeah. But I moved from Fairfax, Virginia to I hopped on a motorcycle and drove to Queens. And a friend lived in Queens and he rented me a room out of his apartment. And that's where I lived for 6 months until I could afford to get my own place. I was trying to make it as an artist, and I wanted to be a comic artist and interview with DC Comics and Image Comics and Marvel Comics. But the thing is, that's right when they almost all went bankrupt. The movie saved them. A lot of them actually did go bankrupt.
Yeah.
But the original people that put out The Crow, Caliber Press, they went bankrupt. So And actually, there were a couple of companies that picked me up and then went bankrupt.
Is it harder to write a horror story than it is to draw one, or are they the same, or are they just different?
When I first started, I probably would have told you, oh, they're probably, about the same. If anything, the, drawing is more difficult. But now I'd actually say it's the opposite.
Oh yeah.
Because, like, first of all, I've been drawing so long, it's almost like second nature to me. But, with the drawing, like, I've also been drawing so long, I have this big reservoir to pull from. So when I imagine something, I kind of fully visualize in my head and I know from experience how to render it. Whereas when I'm writing, like I've learned a lot over time about like first person, second person, third person, present tense, past tense, shorter sentences, what you should include, what you shouldn't. Like there's all this stuff that goes into it that if you're one of the best authors, I'm a big fan of Neil Gaiman, and like Neil Gaiman stuff is like very smooth, but you can see he slowly evolved to that point.
Right.
But I would say, by this point, I feel like I have to concentrate more on the writing and make it as smooth as humanly possible.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I just read the first 50 pages of Black Seas of Infinity. That's a book that you wrote a long time ago, and then you kind of rewrote it, or you're rewriting it now?
Well, I got the rights back and I re-edited it. Yeah.
So what I downloaded is the re-edited version, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably.
So, and I asked you that because the descriptions are so incredibly detailed. I mean, I can almost smell what's going on in that room. It's really well done. Your descriptions are fantastic. The short sentences are great because I came from the TV news world where I worked for 25 years. And in TV, you have to take a story this big and make it this big. You have to take a huge piece of copy and translate it down into 3 sentences, and each sentence has to be like five words. So your writing style really spoke to me in that way. I kind of, it was really easy to just kind of move along. The descriptions were great. As I said, I'm only up to I'm about a third of the way through the ebook version, so I will continue doing that. Obviously, your themes are very dark. You're very into, as you call the master of horror. And this is reflected in your artwork, your tattoos. There's lots of headless people, and there's lots of kind of ghoulishness and some actual violence. Some of your tattoos are, I'll show them in a minute, but can I ask you if that was always kind of where you came from, or did the various tragedies in your life inspire that?
Well, I've always liked Dark Age. I remember when I first saw Evil Dead 2, that's the first one I saw in the franchise. And what was I then? I was like, I think 15 when I saw it, or 14. Mm-hmm. But when I saw it, I was like, that was my new favorite movie. Right. I loved that movie. Like today, I'm still a big fan. Like, I have a tattoo on my knuckles. Nice. But yeah, I've always liked a darker tint. Like even when like I go to the library all the time when I was a kid, because we always had a library on the military base. And if I wanted anything, I didn't have enough money to buy stuff. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have a video game player. So I was like, I would go and I would look at covers, and if the cover looked like it was just like Fabio posing for something, I wouldn't pick it up. But if it was like Frank Frazetta, like Vikings with like axes or whatever, I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I'll pick that up.
Got it.
So yeah, like I always went for the dark theme.
So you were always into that. All right. So, and that leads me to my next couple of questions here. And I just find it, amazing that you seem like a really good guy, and you seem like you're pretty, your feet are both on the ground, and you've been through some shit in life. And here's the stuff that I'm talking about. So this is from your bio on your website. In 97, it says you got into a violent car crash and a knife fight with a crackhead that severed a tendon on your left thumb. So, okay, but your left thumb works, right?
It sort of.
Okay, sort of. But are you right-handed?
Yeah, I'm right-handed.
Okay,
so my right thumb.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, at least you still have your left thumb.
Yeah.
All right. And so then you went, and in 2000 you started tattooing. How old were you at that time when you started tattooing? So what would that make you? You got your first tattoo at 21.
Well,
was it shortly thereafter that you started?
No, not really. So when I remember like I was kind of opposite and kind of lucky. Like I was offered an apprenticeship from a friend of a friend's who saw my art and said, "Oh, that guy should tattoo."
Ah,
But I thought all the tattoos was like old school designs. Like
hmm.
I'd watched like Mike Ness from Social Distortion. I'm like, I want to be covered like that, but I didn't want to do that for a living. I was like, yeah, I want to do more complicated, like what I thought was much cooler stuff.
Which you do now.
Well, thank you. But so my eyes hadn't been open to the way that tattoos would evolve by that point. So I turned the apprenticeship down. And then much later, when I'd seen more developed tattoos, and I was in New York and I was trying to make it, and I'm like, initially when I got into tattooing, I was like, I'll just do this until I get a quote real job.
Oh, I see.
But then I really enjoyed it. It's
Yeah,
done a lot for me and it's evolved a lot. So, you know, now I wouldn't stop.
gotcha. Okay. And so then it says in 2002, in 2000, you started tattooing. A year later, in September 2001, you were stricken with brain cancer and underwent the whole gamut: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. So that must have taken you out of life for a while, or no?
Well, not really, because I'm
No.
stubborn. um, I was in Bellevue Hospital 4 days after surgery when the Twin Towers went down.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. Okay.
And then they run a pathology to see whether it's malignant or benign. If it's malignant, it's cancer. And they're like, yeah, it's malignant. So I had to go through radiation and chemotherapy and all that. But the whole time, I just started to make like some decent money
Yeah.
doing art, tattooing, and I just started to make it in New York City. Like New York City is kind of like it's a struggle to survive. And I feel like I just started to get on my feet, you know and like I was making a play. I just started dating this girl. She is a Colombian immigrant. I just started dating her. So like I kind of felt like everything was kind of coming together,
Yeah.
and then that happened. So I felt
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna let this kill me. I'm like, dude, I'm in my 20s. This is not the end of me.
Right.
So
Well, now it's
so
20, 21, 22 years later, and here you are.
I used to have like almost photographic memory.
Hmm.
Like my grade point average was 3.95.
Oh,
Like,
geez.
if I read a book, I ace a test.
That's
So
cool.
but after brain cancer, I do not have photographic memory. So like I'll be like, oh, did I lock the door? Oh, let me go back upstairs and double check. Yeah. So that's the way my memory is now.
I got it. And so then you mentioned that you met a woman from Colombia. Is that Monica?
Yeah.
This was the woman who ended up being your wife, and she, it
Yeah.
says here, was a fellow tattoo artist. And then tragedy strikes when she's in a motorcycle accident, and she is killed. What looks like 6 years later, 5 or 6 years later. So now you got your thumb sliced open in a knife fight. You got brain cancer and surgery. You didn't have your parents threw you out of the house. Your wife is killed. What and so
Oh, and I
how do
was in
you
a
how do
car
you
crack where my face broke the windshield and the car flipped over. Yeah.
oh, we didn't even mention that. And so how do you move forward from all that? Or do you just not keep you just say tomorrow's another day?
Well, I figure it's like this. I mean, probably I don't think people have this attitude anymore because this is not the generation that has stormed the beaches in Normandy.
Yeah.
But the way I feel is like, if you don't make it, nobody cares except for you. Like when it all comes down to it, like maybe your parents or your girlfriend or your wife might go, well, that's a shame. But what's really important, like what really matters is what matters to you.
Folks, you're listening to Type Tune Tint with Dan Henk, and we will be back in just a minute.
Secrets of a Married Couple, Bud and Maggie Remick. Bud killed a guy, went to jail, then got out. Maggie survived Bud's incarceration, but just barely. Both launched new lives after prison, but not without trouble following them every step of the way. Now the greatest challenge to their marriage? Their own secrets. Read Bud and Maggie's Secrets by Tom Krantz, now available in ebook and paperback on Amazon and elsewhere. Bud and Maggie's Secrets, a guilty pleasure just for you.
And I'm back with Dan Henk from Long Island, New York. He is an accomplished tattoo artist pretty much his entire life, but he's been tattooing for over 20 years. Is that your home or your studio there behind you, by the way?
This is my house.
I
Yeah.
got you. So you've got lots of good stuff cool stuff on your wall. I just want to show folks a few, those of you who are listening on the podcast version, fine. I can only describe so much with my voice. What you really need to do is check out the video. These are some of Dan's tattoos. They're all on his website. My favorite, I got to say, is whoever had the picture of Jack Nicholson with the
Yeah.
"Here's Johnny" from The Shining, that face shot of him tattooed on his, is that a leg that it's tattooed
It's
on?
a leg. Yeah.
It's like, that is, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. A lot of people, that's their favorite.
To do a large tattoo, how long does that, I mean, it's probably different for everyone, but a tattoo that covers a thigh, how long does that take? Is that multiple sittings?
Yeah, well, it is multiple. It definitely is multiple sittings, but how long it takes depends on how big the piece is. Does it wrap around your leg? How big is your leg?
I got you.
Different people, like some people's skin takes ink very quickly. Some people, it's like crying off skin. It's like you're working on it. It's like fighting back with you.
Mm,
It depends on how much detail is incorporated. It depends on whether the artist is kind of like in their flow or if
I
they
got
have to
it.
like double think everything. Like there's a whole lot that goes.
So there's
into-
no average. It's everyone really is truly is different,
right,
different work. Got you.
right. And it
Um,
really bothers me when people call into my shop and they'll be like, "Yeah, I want a medium tattoo." It's like that's like going. I want a medium sized car. How much does that cost?
Wow.
It's like I don't know. Is it a Mercedes or a Kia?
Yeah. I got it. That's funny. The book that I'm reading now, The Black Seas of Infinity, was that your first novel?
That was well. It's my first published novel.
Okay,
Like,
let's go with that. So that was, and you wrote it first in 11, and then you re-edited it, and the version that I have. How many books have you written? How many novels have you actually written?
I have 3 full novels out.
Okay.
I did fairly recently an anthology. It's kind of like a like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt sort of short stories.
Right, I
And
just saw that, right?
yeah, it's called Never Dead, and I have a bunch of other authors in it. And because they don't, I'm not singing like Elon Musk money or anything. I was like, how about this? I was like, how about I trade you one of the original illustrations I did for either one of your stories, or will do for this story
Oh,
in exchange for a short story.
oh, that's cool.
And a lot of people were totally on board. And then there's some fairly big names that signed up right away, like Jeff Strand, and like I guess other people want to be included in an anthology with Jeff Strand.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, hey man, I'd love to do it. So I got plenty of people, and there were a couple of people that I wasn't rude to, but I didn't think that their work fit. So I
I
like
got it.
didn't
So you
include them.
you basically curated this book, but you also have a story in it, correct?
I have 2, yeah.
Okay. All right. And what about so I also made note of The End of the World. That one looks a little bit more up my alley. I've written 2 science fiction novels and I love science fiction. And both of my novels deal with like climate change and how we're fucking up the environment and how we refuse to change anything. But The End of the World, that is also a recent book?
Yeah, that's fairly recent. That's like oh well, I say fairly recent, like 2019.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But all my books, like I kind of maintain that comic book sensibility, like everything takes place in the same continuity, the same universe. So like, I say like Into the World is my sequel to the Black Seas of Infinity, but it's kind of like Mad Max Road Warrior. It's like you don't have to read one to read the other.
Oh, really?
So Into the World is kind of like it's an apocalyptic tale. There are 2 main characters. One is the guy in the Black Seas of Infinity, but it's not like if you read the Black Seas of Infinity, you get more backstory of where he came from.
Okay,
not
then
like
it's good that I'm
you-
reading that one now because that's the first one, and then I'll move on to The End of the World. That's cool. So, the Black Seas of Infinity. I don't want to spend 20 minutes on the plot, but it seems to revolve around a guy who works for the secret government agency that analyzes essentially UFOs and UFOs that crash to Earth. But he has this parallel notion of becoming, of kind of leaving his body and becoming kind of a greater being, right?
Yeah.
And so he accomplishes that, or tries to accomplish that, by he breaks into this. It's on. You seem to know a lot about Fort Bragg. Did you live there?
Yes.
That's the one. Okay, that
Yeah.
explains it.
For 3 years. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so he breaks into Fort Bragg, and he's now he's wearing this weird kind of man slash being suit, and he's got all these powers. But your descriptions of everything, it's almost like you're there. It's like your descriptions are so vivid.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed. It's really great. How long did it take you to write this novel?
It took it longer than it should have because, like, first, like, I always had this, like, all right, so the original core story, I was going to make a graphic novel.
Mhm.
And so I did a graphic novel version, then they updated it, then I finally sent it off to like DC Comics. Paradox Press picked it up, Kitchen Press picked it up. They both went bankrupt, and then I was like, I finally was like, well, if I really want to make it, I got to go to art school. So I went to art school. Then I made another version. So by now it had been in multiple versions, and that's one that I used to interview with DC Comics and Marvel Comics.
Okay.
And then I realized, well, because like I said, they almost went bankrupt. So it's like nobody was really trying out new properties. But I was like, I like those old novels that have like little illustrations in them. I'm like, why don't I do that? But I'll make like the illustrations like more expensive,
Mhm.
So that's what I did. And that's why I stuck with their sense of doing illustrated novels. But so I feel like I get out all the details I want and a little bit of the pictures as well. So that was like that started when hold on, my dog's jumping on me.
No, it's okay.
That started, when I wanted to be a graphic novel, but I've been slowly evolving it, and then when I had brain cancer, like when I had brain cancer, I was going through full-on chemotherapy, but I was still tattooing 3 days a week. I was still going to the gym 3 days a week.
Wow.
Like I feel like if you give up, that's it, you're over.
Yeah, sure.
So I was just pushing, but it's like you can only do so much, So
Well, there are only 24 hours in the day,
Yeah.
right? And you have to sleep sometime, I guess, right?
Right. And then I started to take off in the tattoo world. Like when I first started out, like a lot of people were a lot of the old timers are still like big in the industry.
Mhm.
And like they do what we call flash, which is the designs on the wall. They're probably, by the way, any design on the wall, probably hundreds of people have.
Mhm.
People are surprised by that, but it's true.
No, I believe you.
But so they were mad, and they would say stuff like, what you're doing doesn't look like a tattoo. What, you think you're an artist? And it's like, well, actually, I do think I'm an artist. But like they had kind of a corner on the market, so they were making a lot of money, and then all of a sudden they're making way less money because people that actually were skilled artists were coming to the craft. So I remember there was a lot of pushback, especially in the early days when I started. And I thought everyone hated me, because I hear like, and that's also when tattoo forums were big, and like, and the thing is, like, all the new people coming up, they're scared to say anything. And I know that because now I talk to them, but at the time, like the people who say stuff would be the veterans who also did that old school style. They were also mad at anybody coming in. So yeah, I thought everyone hated me, but it turned out some of the stuff I was doing, because I'm a little bit, defiant, and that's probably how I made it this far. But I was like, oh, you tell me I can't do that? I'll do it twice as much.
Yeah.
So there was stuff I was doing, like I think I was like one of the first guys doing color portraits. And so I was doing this stuff that like the old timers would be like, that didn't look like a tattoo. But I was like, okay, but people like it, it's like furthering my career, I'll do it. And then at some point I just blew up, and all of a sudden it seemed like almost overnight I was like in all the magazines, I was getting invited to conventions all over the world and stuff. And the reason why I'm saying this is not to necessarily talk myself up, but it's like, so I kind of put my writing career, off the side because my tattoo career was blowing up.
Yeah, of course. Well, as I was researching tattoos to do this, I came across this Pew Research survey that was done last year. I don't know why they did a survey on tattooing, but they did. And it turns out that according to this survey, 32% of Americans have at least one tattoo. And of
Right.
all those, the majority have more than one, right? And my niece, Julie, just got married in September. She and her wife especially has lots of tattoos. They had her tattoo artist at the wedding. And he signed up. He gave the guy $50. He had a little menu of flash tattoos up, just little ones. Just like, would this have happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Probably not. But tattoos are cool now, and you're like right there at the cutting edge. Right. So if I'm a newbie and I'm going in to get a tattoo, tell me what I need to know. If I'm brand new and I don't know shit.
Well, there are a couple things. One, all those like tattoo shows like Miami Ink and Ink Master and all that stuff, they're full of shit. That's reality TV. That's
Really?
not real.
Okay.
So if you want like a large tattoo or you want a back piece, one, look at portfolios. Don't listen to artists because artists will tell you, like, you have people that are like, I fixed up a lot of portraits where people went to a local artist. He's like, oh, I can do that. But he doesn't show me his work. He just says he can do it. He does a horrible job. Like, there's one guy whose brother died, and I fixed up, the portraits that actually looked like his brother, but he couldn't, like, he was so mad, like, he wouldn't even talk to that guy anymore. Like, and then when I fixed it up, it looked so much more like his brother that his mom, who never been tattooed before, wanted a little memorial tattoo for me. But I'm just the point of all that is you gotta
look at the artwork. Don't
look
take
at the
their word
artwork.
for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, most tattoos, it's not used to not be the case in the old days, but most good tattoos take more than one session. And what you want to do is you do one session, you lay it all out. It's kind of like the sketch of it. You let it heal up, then you go back in and you detail it. And that like people's skin heals differently. So you don't know exactly how it's going to look until it heals up. But if that first session heals up, you kind of have an idea of where you're going with it. They found out the way the ink stays in your skin is white blood cells come and try to swallow it up like it's an invading bacteria, but it's too fat for it to be expelled through the skin. So every tattoo you see are just trapped white blood cells.
Yeah.
But what you do, like I said, you puncture the first layer into the second layer, deposit it there. But that top layer of skin grows back. So
Right.
one thing that, any veteran tattoo artist should be able to tell you, and, they might not tell you because they just want to take your money, but, any honest artist will tell you, hey, this is what I think will look best healed up.
A lot of people, they see, like on TV shows, mostly in movies, they'll see prison inmates with all those tattoos, and they see gang members, and those guys are not doing tattoos the way that professional tattoo artists do it, right? And that's where people fear things like hepatitis C and whatnot. Those jailhouse tattoos are done with, certainly not sterile stuff, and it's whatever they can find. I guess
Not even close.
Stuff. Not even close, right?
You want me to tell you the difference?
Yeah.
There's a big gap. So if you tattoo in jail, often they'll make the ink out of, like, they'll burn the bottom of a shoe or they'll burn newspapers to, like, get ash in the mix with water. And if you notice, all tattoos in jail are black and gray.
Right.
That's all they can do. And so they make something that will stay in the skin that'll be black, and they mix it with the water to make the gray. And then they'll use like a sharpened guitar string or something as a needle. And when it gets dull, what they'll do is they'll sharpen it on the pavement, and they'll keep using it. I've seen some amazing work from jail, but the cleanliness standards are horrible. And we even, like, there's one shop I worked at early on where we hired a guy from jail because his portfolio looked really good. But, within 2 days, his standards were so bad that we all went to the owner, like, we all quit if you don't fire him.
Oh, geez. Wow. But so in a modern tattoo studio, of course, the needles are all only used one time, right?
Needles are used one time. Inks are used one time.
Right. And the inks are put in, they're not taken out of like a big, well, they're put in like little individual containers, right? And then
Exactly.
what's left you toss. So it's
Right,
not like
exactly.
ink and needles are being put
They're
in
called
shared by
ink
anybody.
caps. So they're
Gotcha.
little caps, and you fill each one
Right.
with ink. And also what we use what's called a lap cloth. So we set everything, or a dental bib. So we set everything up on top of that.
Yeah.
We have an ointment, and it's a single use on one person ointment. Then we throw away whatever extra we have. So we apply the ointment. If we tattoo them on like an armrest, we have a barrier film we'll put underneath, which
Yeah.
is like
Saran
one
wrap or
use film
something.
that we throw away
Mhm.
afterwards. We put on gloves, and often we'll change the gloves like 20 times during a tattoo because they might degrade a little bit or
Yeah.
whatever. We're actually more sterile than a doctor's office.
Yeah, I believe that. And that's one of the things that reassured me the first time I got it. And each subsequent time, the artist, and I've used like 3 different artists now, they all do the same thing. So the word is out on how to do safe tattoos. And as I said, I know in New Jersey, it's highly regulated. The one guy told me that inspectors come in there all the time just to make sure that, they
Well,
pop in and they make sure that you're not, taking shortcuts, which is
no,
all.
they do in New York too. Like we get a license by the health department, and we have to renew it every year.
We've been talking to Dan Henk, who is a tattoo artist, an artist. He is an author. He's got several books out, which we've talked about and which I've shown you. And the last thing I discovered, you do a podcast, Skull Session Podcast.
That's
And you
correct.
interview, so you're interviewing other people in the tattoo and kind of the horror,
Well,
the horror genre, or who?
musicians and artists and authors, and like indie author. Although I've had I had Walter Simonson, who did all the Thor. He did Thor comics for a while, but he did all the Thor stuff for the movies. I see Bissett, who did Swamp Thing with Alan Moore. I did Donato, who did all the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Hmm.
So I try and get people in there who are like working on stuff that I like. Like that's pretty much what it's about.
Yeah. Plus, it's also it's a nice, has a nice informal feel,
Right.
which is what I like. It's really been great meeting you and great being exposed to your art, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, folks. Tom Krantz here. I appreciate you tuning in to my podcast, Type Tune Tint, and I especially appreciate those of you who have subscribed. I started this subscriber thing in July of 2024, really just as a way of recouping a little bit of the costs of doing this podcast. There's website hosting, and there's WordPress additions, and occasionally I buy a book so that I can actually know what I'm talking about when I interview an author. You can subscribe to this podcast for as little as $3 a month. Comes off your credit card automatically. And for $3 a month, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping keep this podcast going. I'm in my 5th year now, but also I will occasionally offer exclusive content just for subscribers. So give it a shot. I appreciate you taking the plunge. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. If you have any questions or comments, of course, you know how to get in touch. So please subscribe, and I appreciate it. Thanks.